In this playthrough of Pokemon White 2, I wanted to see if I could beat a hardcore Nuzlocke with only one Pokemon of each type. My hardcore Nuzlocke rules are as follows. I can only catch the first Pokemon on every route, I cannot use items during battle, I have to play on set mode, I can't overlevel the next gym leader, and if the Pokemon faints, it must be permanently boxed. I'll also be playing on challenge mode, which adds additional Pokemon to the gym leader teams and gives them new movesets. Thanks to recent information from Flygon HG, it turns out however that challenge mode is broken. Challenge mode increases gym leaders' Pokemon levels, but doesn't change their stats, so I'll be using level caps based on the default gym leaders' levels to keep things fair. Using one Pokemon of each type is a really cool concept for a Nuzlocke run. It gives me lots of variety in team building and makes every Pokemon even more valuable than they would be in a normal run, because once they're gone, I lose access to that type. Black and White 2 are also some of the hardest base games to Nuzlocke, so this is going to be really fun. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, it really helps me out and lets me know you guys are enjoying. Also, if you've got suggestions for future runs that you'd like to see, let me know in the comments. So let's not waste any more time and jump straight into this run. So we start this adventure like any other, immediately being kicked out and made to pick our starter. For this run I decided to go with Oshawott. It's a toss-up between Oshawott or Tepig, sorry Snivy, but there's not a huge amount of great water types in Unova, so Oshawott wins out. Also, if I pick a starter that stays a monotype, I will get access to a different fighting type later on, which I wouldn't if I chose Tepig. So Tully joins me on my adventure, and we're able to make quick work of our rival Snivy. We then get to catch our first encounter of the run, a Patrat we name Thray. As far as first route normal type encounters go, I'd rather have gotten a Lillipup, as Patrat is kinda garbage, but hopefully Thray will prove himself in time. Spoilers, he does not. From route 20 we catch our next encounter. I'd love to tell you that I found something better than Patrat, but I do not. Instead I catch a Sunkern, possibly one of the worst Pokemon by base stats in the entire game, Joy. Tyrell isn't even cute, it's just literally a seed. Oh well, I'll take what I can get. We do find a much more exciting encounter in Thulossi Ranch, however, a fluffy Mareep I named Baratheon. While obviously a Railu would have been completely busted, Baratheon is still an amazing electric type to add to the team. We then have to battle our rival, who is easily taken down by my less than amazing team, so we're ready for the first gym. This first gym fight is against Charon and his normal types, and all of this Pokemon no work up, so I need a little bit of luck here or I'm likely to lose someone. I start the fight with Thray and Charon starts with his own Patrat. I start going for tackle as Patrat starts going for workups. I'm hoping to be able to get the KO before Patrat starts attacking, and luckily thanks to Charon getting greedy, I'm able to take down Patrat with 3 tackles without taking any damage. Good start. Second is Lillipup, and I'm hoping for the same results here. Unfortunately though, Lillipup is a bit more tanky than Charon's Patrat, so a single tackle doesn't do a lot as Lillipup gets off a workup. Scarily, Lillipup then immediately goes to a really hard tackle, but luckily gets slightly mitigated by a berry. Unfortunately though, my own tackle from Thray also puts Lillipup into range to heal with a berry. This is turning into a game of Snap. I then go through a third tackle that brings Lillipup to just below half as Charon goes through a second workup. This is getting really scary. I take a risk on the next turn leaving Thray in, and somehow he survives on 1 HP. That was slightly terrifying. Annoyingly though, Thray then leaves Lillipup in range of being KO'd with another tackle, which means Charon is going to heal on the next turn. I decide I want to take a risk here and get through this deathless, so as Charon heals I switch into Tully. I get off a weak water gun as Charon then goes through another workup. I need this Lillipup gone at this point or I'm going to start losing Pokemon. Another tackle then brings Tully into the red, and a second water gun does a decent amount of damage but unfortunately doesn't get the KO. I decide my best bet is switching into Baratheon and hoping to get the power, as at the time I see this as my only way out. In hindsight though, this is honestly a misplay, as had I sacked Tyrell or Thray to get Baratheon into 3, I would have been able to get through this losing only 1 Pokemon. I don't see this out though, and this mistake cost me dearly, because on the switch I don't get the power, meaning I have no choice but to switch into Tyrell and watch as she goes down. I then make a second misplay of not switching back into Baratheon to the power chance again. This means I basically give up as I watch Tully go down to this bloodthirsty puppy, and then watch as Baratheon suffers the same fate. As Baratheon goes down however, he does actually get the power from static, meaning Thray is able to come in and finish off the Lillipup. This doesn't mean this run is alive however, because Charon still has his Pidove thanks to challenge mode. This means Charon is able to end attempt 1 with a quick attack. This loss is completely on me. I don't know how I would have gotten through that without losing anyone, but there's no way I needed to wipe with such an easy out. Luckily, we weren't too far in, but for my Pokemon's sake, I'm going to have to play a bit better if I want to win this run. Attempt 2 time, and our encounters are slightly different this time around, but not really much better. Instead of Tyrell the Sunkern, we catch a Purloin we name Rhine. Purloin is kind of bad to be honest, and there's much better dark types I would have rather have gotten, but it's not like I'm going to miss Tyrell. So let's try this first gym again. Once again I plan to use Thray to take down Charon's Patrat, and it's going about as well as last time as Patrat is only going for workup, as I'm able to bring Patrat into the red without taking any damage. Unfortunately though, Patrat is able to get off 1 really strong tackle before going down, down, as Charon actually ends up using his potion on Patrat this time around. Next is Lillipup, and Threy is actually able to force the puppy to use its berry before Threy is brought low enough that he's not going to take another hit. I decide I'm going to have to sack here or risk a repeat of last time, so I salute as Threy stays in and takes another bite. Rest in peace, Threy, your sacrifice won't be forgotten. Thanks to Threy going down, I'm able to bring Tully into 3. Tully then goes for a water gun and takes a massive amount from a tackle, but is luckily mitigated slightly by an Oran berry. Thanks to the berry, Tully is able to survive a second tackle, just barely, and then take down Lillipup with a second water gun. And to risk a second crit there, but we've gotten Charon down to his last Pokemon, Pidove. This doesn't prove to be an issue though, because Baratheon is able to come in on a workup and then get off 2 Thunder Shocks to the KO. First gym done. That could have been slightly smoother, and we can never forget Threy's sacrifice, but at least now we can push on with the rest of the game. Thanks to our new level cap, we can immediately evolve Baratheon into Fluffy, which amusingly just seems to involve teaching him to stand on 2 legs. We then get our next encounter before the next gym, the always useful Growlithe, who we find in the Bank Complex. Growlithe is obviously a really good encounter, especially with Intimidate, so I'm happy to add Lannister to the team. We're also able to evolve Tully into Dewott, and while most Pokemon have an awkward teenage phase second evolution, I gotta say I really love Dewott's design. Like, what happened to the other 2 second stages of the starters in this gen? They really don't compare. With that, we're ready for the second gym. Let's hope it goes smoother than the first. I start with Baratheon and Roxy starts with Kothing. I'm expecting Roxy to try and poison Baratheon here with Smog, so I'm slightly annoyed when Kothing constantly goes for Venom Shock instead. I'm able to nearly get the KO with strong Thunder Shocks, but unfortunately Roxy heals with a potion, and Baratheon isn't able to get the KO, Thor being brought to 1 HP. This needs to stop happening. The stress is too much. Luckily, despite my heart attack, Baratheon survives, so I'm able to switch into Tully, who takes a weak Assurance and then a Shock before getting the KO with a Razor Shell. Second is Grimer, so I stay in and get off a really strong Razor Shell. Annoyingly, before I can get off another one for the KO, Grimer goes to the Disable. This means I'm only able to bring Grimer into the red with a tackle and have to take another Venom Shock. A second tackle, however, on the following turn is enough for the KO. Third is Whirlipede, so I switch into Rhine as I'm worried about a rollout. Luckily, on the switch, Whirlipede just goes to Protect. I'm then able to get off 2 silent attacks before Whirlipede leaves Rhine really low after 2 Venom Shocks. With Whirlipede's accuracy lowered, I feel much safer to bring Lannister in. Lannister actually takes a lot from a Venom Shock on the switch, but then is able to one-shot with a Flame Wheel. Second gym done. Couple bad crits there could have been really bad, but luckily my luck held up, despite the fact that the Poison Gym leader really didn't want to poison my Pokemon. Very strange. Annoyingly, before we can get to Castelia City, we have to go chase down the Boat Captain, which involves playing Movie Star for some weird reason. I'm conflicted on this section, to be honest. I really like the idea behind it, but does the Force tutorial really have to take so long? We do eventually convince the Boat Captain to continue being a Boat Captain, however, meaning we're able to get to New York. Oh, sorry, I meant Castelia City. This place is huge, but we're more interested in the sewers, where we can find our next encounter, a Zubat. Zubats are always amazing, especially against the next gym leader, so welcome to the team, Stark. Further into the sewers, we get to Relic Passage, so we can find a Roggenrola we name Martel. I don't have access to trade evolutions during this run, so Martel will never reach his full potential, but he should still be useful in the early and mid game. We're then able to evolve Rhine into Lipard, who is still fairly useless to be honest, and then we actually immediately evolve Stark into Crobat, meaning the next gym should be a cakewalk. Through the power of magic, which is definitely not cheating, we're also able to reach the small park in the center of Castelia City, which you usually can't reach during the autumn months of this game. Inside we catch a Petilil we name Aaron, and while I know this is a strange choice to our favourite Pokemon, Petilil is actually one of my favourites, so I'm excited to get to use her in a run. I will be very, very upset if she dies, however. With that, it's time for Berg and his bug types, and with Stark, this fight isn't even close. Berg starts off with Dwebble, who I'm easily able to take down with 2 Razor Shells from Tully. From here, it's a clean sweep with Stark. Berg's Acely Vanny goes down to 2 wing attacks, Carablast goes down to a single wing attack, and then last is Shelmet, who survives a wing attack, meaning Berg is able to heal, but this just delays the inevitable, as 2 more wing attacks instead of 1 win us the match. Third gym down, and this was a nice change of pace after the first 2. Unfortunately, not many gym fights to the rest of this game go nearly as well. Before we have to worry about that though, we've got a couple evolutions and encounters to deal with. Firstly, Martel evolves into Boldor. This is good timing because it should really help with all the Emolgas I'm going to have to deal with in the gym. Next on Route 16 we catch a Solosis, we name Greyjoy. Solosis is a really tanky, supportive psychic type, and I've never used one before because I've always played Black and Black too, so Greyjoy should be an excellent member of the team. In the Desert Resort I can either catch a Sandshrew or a Trapinch, and I'm hoping for Trapinch because Sandshrew is kind of underwhelming. Of course, then I catch a Sandshrew, but at least should be useful for the next gym. Welcome to the team, Bolton. We then collect a Sunstone in Mimbassa City to evolve Arian into Lilligant. We also evolve Baratheon into Amthros thanks to our level cap of 30, and finally we're able to evolve Bolton into Sandslash. With that, we're ready for the next gym. Annoyingly, I run all the way through the roller coaster gym to be met with the "Your Princess is in another castle" moment, as the gym leader has moved locations right next door. Eventually though, we battle our way up the catwalk to challenge the 4th gym leader, Eliza. I start with Martel and Eliza starts with Emolga. I'm expecting a Volt Switch here, and I'm correct in my prediction, but luckily Luckily, Eliza switches into Joltik, meaning my Rock Slide is still able to pick up a KO. Good start. Second is Slathy, so I switch into Bolton on a Volt Switch, who is easily then able to KO with a single dig. Third is Eliza's Ace Zeb Striker. Luckily, Bolton can handle this spiky horse fairly easily. Zeb Striker goes for a weak pursuit as we get off a dig, and just misses the KO. Zeb Striker is then able to get off a weak stomp before going down to a second dig. Last is the ever annoying Emolga. Emolga immediately hits really hard with an Aerial Ace before Bolton retaliates with a slash that does slightly less than half. I then decide to go for a second slash, and Emolga crits with an Aerial Ace, leaving Bolton with just 4 HP. Can this game stop giving me a heart attack, please? Jesus. Annoyingly, Bolton procs static on the second slash, and then a lot of damage is healed back with the Citrus Berry. I decide my best bet for taking out this flying rat is Baratheon. Baratheon takes a very weak quick attack on the switch before Emolga is also affected by static. Ha, karma. I'm then easily able to finish off the Emolga with a single Electro Ball. Fourth gym done, that wasn't too bad. Luckily, Bolton was able to take out most of Eliza's team before it could be an issue. We've only got one thing to do before the next gym, and that's evolve Greyjoy into Decision. And with that, it's Clay time. Honestly, Clay is always the most terrifying gym leader in this game, but luckily I've got a pretty decent plan to hopefully get through this pretty safely. And that plan is Aaron. Clay starts with Krokorok, and I start with Aaron. Luckily, I can immediately put Krokorok to sleep and start setting up Quiver Dances. I'm hoping at +6 I should be able to just sweep this entire gym. Of course, as I'm setting up, Krokorok wakes up twice, but eventually I am able to get to +6. I'm then able to take out Krokorok with a single Mega Drain. Then Onyx comes out and I realise I've overlooked a pretty major part of my plan, Sturdy. I can't one-hit the Onyx thanks to Sturdy, and I'm really worried about Explosion, so I'm going to have to risk putting it to sleep before taking it out. If I miss Sleep Powder here, then my entire plan could literally explode. So I go for Sleep Power, just praying this is not the moment it misses, and luckily it lands, thank God. This means it's safe to get off 3 Mega Drains as Clay heals after the first, taking down the only Onyx I've ever been scared of. Luckily from here it's just a straight sweep as Sand Slash goes down to a single Mega Drain, and then Excadrill also goes down to a single Mega Drain. Before we reach Skylar, however, we do have 2 more evolutions. We can evolve Tully into his final form, Samurott, and design-wise, what happened to Samurott? Like, I mean, compared to Duois, I'm really not feeling it, you know? Oh well. We also collect a Firestone, meaning we can evolve Lannister into Arcanine. We're also able to get 2 brilliant encounters, the first of which is in Milestone Cave, and Axew we named Targaryen. Axew is one of the best Pokemon in this game, so maybe it's a good thing we didn't get Trapinch earlier. Sorry, Flygon. I also catch a Clink in Charstone Cave, who we named Dane. I'm not a huge fan of Dane's design, to be honest, and it's a bit strange having a physical attacking Steel Electric type, but a Steel type is a Steel type, so I'm not going to complain. We're then ready for the 6th gym leader, Skylar, and I'm going to be honest, I go into this thinking it's going to be a cakewalk. It's not at all. I don't even bother edging my Pokemon, I'm so confident, and this confidence is very misplaced. Skylar starts with Swoobat, and I start off with Dane. Dane immediately takes a lot from a resisted crit Psychic before doing less in retaliation with the super effective Charge Beam. Like, really, Dane? You're letting the side down here. I then take a second Psychic that at least doesn't do as much without the crit. Of course, Dane then misses a Charge Beam. Really? Dane? Hello, this isn't meant to be a hard matchup for you. I then take a third Psychic and am brought into the red before heading back with a Gear Grind that actually does a decent amount despite missing the KO. I know Skylar will heal on the next turn, so I take the opportunity to get off a decently strong Volt Switch and switch into Stark. Why did Volt Switch do so much more than Charge Beam? I'm confident Stark can outspeed here and finish off Swoobat with a single Acrobatics, but somehow Stark is outsped. Like, what? This means I nearly lose Stark to a Psychic. Luckily he hangs on, is able to get the KO with an Acrobatics, but Jesus, 2 of my Pokemon nearly down for 1 KO. Second is Sigalith, and this thing is a monster. I decide my best bet is Tully, who isn't necessary for the rest of this fight and should be able to take a hit fairly well. On the switch, Tully takes a huge amount of damage from an Air Cutter. Luckily on the next turn, Sigalith misses a Hypnosis, meaning I'm able to get off the Razor Shell that does slightly less than half. I then go through an Aqua Jet that brings Sigalith into range of being KO'd before being hit by a Psychic that leaves Tully on 10 HP. Game, please stop doing that. I'm not sure if Skylar will heal for a second time here, so I don't want to risk a second Aqua Jet. I decide maybe Martel can survive a hit from this thing, or maybe it will miss an Air Cutter. But on the switch, Martel gets put down to 13 HP. This is bad. I decide unfortunately my best bet is to let Martel go down here so Lannister can come in for 3. So with a heavy heart I then watches Skylar takes down Martel. Rest in peace Martel, you nearly reached the end game and an early retirement. You won't be forgotten. Thanks to Martel's sacrifice, I can now bring in Lannister, who after taking a nasty Psychic is able to get the KO with a single Flamethrower. Unfortunately Skylar has 2 more Pokemon, so I'm not out the woods yet. First is Swanana, so I switch into Baratheon, who takes a lot from the Surf. Unfortunately I know I'm going to be outsped here and have to risk a crit from a second Surf. So Swanana goes to Surf and Baratheon survives, thankfully getting the KO with a single Volt Switch. I needed that luck. Luckily, thanks to Volt Switch, I can bring Lannister back in as I know Skarmory is last. Nearly through this. Thanks to Sturdy, a single Flamethrower isn't enough for the KO, but luckily on the next turn, after taking a really scary Aerial Ace, a second Flamethrower wins us the match. Oh my god, that fight was insane. I can't believe we got through that with only 1 death. A single crit there could have cost us the run. I can't underestimate these fights on challenge mode, clearly. We do have quite a lot to do before we can get to the 7th gym. Firstly, we evolve Greyjoy into Relic. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but sure. Again, using the power of magic, or maybe cheating, we can change the season in our game to catch another encounter before heading off, a Cubchew on Route 7. Manderly isn't the best ice type we can get in this game, but I do need one before the next gym, so I'm happy to welcome them aboard. We then fly a plane to the other side of the region. I've never really understood why the game continues like this on the other side of the map, maybe to separate it more from the original black and white? Unsure. It's cool though. We're then able to evolve Manderly into Beartic and Targaryen into Haxorus. With that, we're ready for the 7th gym, and if you thought the last gym fight was messy, you haven't seen anything yet. My plan is simple. I start with Arion, while Drayden starts with Drogogon. I want to put this thing to sleep, lower its attack to -6, and then set up Reflect with Greyjoy, and then set up and sweep with Haxorus. Easy, right? Wrong. So very wrong. It starts off well. Aaron is able to put Drogogon to sleep fairly easily with Sleep Powder, and then Greyjoy is able to get Drogogon down to -6. Then the trouble starts. I start going through Dragon Dances. I get off 4 Dragon Dances before being hit by a Dragon Tail. Now normally this would be an issue because Dragon Tail obviously switches you out, but I was paying attention and I'm not worried about this because Drogogon has Sheer Force. This increases his attack power but means secondary effects of moves don't take effect. In this case, Dragon Tail's secondary effect of forcing me to switch out. So you can imagine my surprise when I'm forced to switch out anyway. Like what? Apparently, according to the internet, Sheer Force doesn't affect Dragon Tail. Like why? I'm very annoyed at this point and nothing if not stubborn, so I decided I might as well try again. It's not like I need +6 and I was able to get Targaryen to +4 last time before being switched out. So I set up Reflect again with Greyjoy, miss many sleep powers before putting Drogogon to sleep, and then send Targaryen back out to begin setting up and then sweeping this entire gym. Of course, then Drogogon immediately wakes up and switches me out again. Fuck it, I'm using Brute Force. So I switched into Manderly, who luckily lands an Icicle Crash, which of course misses the KO. This fight is going to make me scream, I swear. Manderly then takes a huge amount from a -6 Rock Slide before going down to a second Icicle Crash. At least we didn't miss there, I suppose. Second is Altaria, so I switch into Tully. Altaria then starts going for Cotton Guard, so I decide to lock it in with Encore. As Altaria is now locked into Cotton Guard, I decide I should try putting it to sleep as its defenses are maxed, so I switch into Aaron. Luckily, I land a Sleep Powder, and then I get off a Leech Seed as well. Surprisingly, before Leech Seed can land, however, Drayden hard switches into Haxorus, negating its defense increases. This fight continues to be insane. I decide Haxorus is probably going to try and set up with Dragon Dancers here, so I switch into Tully. Haxorus actually goes for an X-Scissor, so good job I switched there. Luckily, after Leech Sealed Heal, I'm safe to then assume Haxorus is now going to go for Dragon Dance, as it doesn't see the KO. I'm correct, so I safely lock Drayden's Ace into Dragon Dance before switching into Manderly and KOing with a single Icicle Crash that luckily doesn't miss. Then Altaria comes back out, now awake thanks to Natural Cure. If that's why the AI switched out, I'm kind of impressed. Luckily, I'm sure it will start going for Cotton Guard again, so I switch into Tully and Encore into further increasing its defense. I then switch into Greyjoy, who's slowly able to whittle down the Altaria with Psychics through a safe KO. Drayden's now down to his last Pokemon, Flygon. I'm confident I can take Flygon out fairly easily if I can lock it into Earth Power, so I switch into Dane to bait Earth Power, and then into Tully to lock it in with Encore, and then safe to bring Arion back in. Of course, Arion misses a few Sleep Powers, so she gets a bit lower than I'd like after a few Earth Power hits, but luckily Sleep Power does connect eventually, meaning I'm able to safely bring in Manderly for an Icicle Crash that gets the KO. That fight was insanely stupid. The fact we didn't lose anyone is kind of mad. I would still argue though that it's not really my fault that I assumed Dragon Tail would be affected by Sheer Force. I mean, why wouldn't it be? That's 7 gyms down, 1 more to go. We actually don't get any more encounters before the next gym, but we do get to watch Team Plasma's giant flying ice ship fire cannons at us, so that's entertaining if nothing else. With that, it's last gym time. The Nod had all tacked on Marlon. I think Marlon needed more screen time as the new gym leader. He just feels very out of left field. He's also fairly easy. I start with Baratheon and Marlon starts off with Whale Lord. I start by getting hit by a really hard Scald, and then I just miss the KO with a discharge. Marlon just heals on the next turn though, so a second discharge that high rolls is enough for an easy KO. Second is Mantine, who hits really hard with another Scald, and luckily goes down to a single discharge. Maybe don't bring your Pokemon that's thought I'm weak to electric out against my electric type. Third is Caracosta, so I switch into Aaron. I take a huge amount from a Rock Slide on the switch, but luckily this damage is healed back by a single Mega Drain that would have KO'd had it not been for Sturdy. I hate Sturdy so much. Sturdy means Caracosta gets off another strong Rock Slide before going down to a second Mega Drain. Last is Jellicent. Jellicent is actually really tanky and takes less than half from a Mega Drain before heading back with a strong Shadow Ball. Luckily Dane can easily deal with Shadow Balls, so I switch in, take a minimal amount of damage from 2 Shadow Balls before getting off a discharge that very nearly KOs. Annoyingly, Cursed Body then activates, meaning I can no longer finish off this big stupid jellyfish. I then take a worrying amount from a Scald, so I decide to Volt Switch into Targaryen while Jellicent goes to recover. God, this thing won't go down, but luckily 2 Dragon Claws are enough for the KO while Targaryen tanks a single Shadow Shadow Ball. That could have got a bit dicey there at the end. That's all 8 gyms done. Now we've got one annoying old man to deal with before we can get to the Elite Four, but unfortunately his team is pretty stacked, so I'd lie if I said I was going into this fully confident. We do get one more encounter before we reach Ghetsis though, and mine through we catch on Route 22. Umber is an excellent fast fighting type, and I couldn't have asked for a better final encounter for this run. It's then time to confront Ghetsis, and before we battle him he tries to murder us twice. This is a kid's game, right? Luckily N saves us before deciding to let us fight Ghetsis and his legendary Pokemon on our own. Like, I guess he knows we're the main character, so let's take down Ghetsis' legendary Ice Dragon. I can't find what moveset Kyurem has online, so I take a bit of the risk and start off with Aaron to hopefully put Kyurem to sleep. Luckily Aaron lands a sleep powder, so I can then switch into Targaryen as Kyurem stays asleep. I then get off 2 Dragon Claws for the KO. Now the real fight starts. Ghetsis starts off with Kothagrigus and I start off with Aaron. I immediately outspeed and land a sleep powder, meaning I'm once again safe to switch into Targaryen. Annoyingly, Kothagrigus immediately wakes up, but thankfully only goes to protect. I immediately start setting up Dragon Dances as Kothagrigus lands a Toxic, which is immediately healed with a Pecha Berry. I then decide to risk another Dragon Dance as I'm fairly sure Kothagrigus will probably go for Protect here, or maybe I'll get lucky and it will just miss Toxic. Much to my irritation, of course, Kothagrigus goes for another Toxic and it lands, putting me on a timer. I'm now like 90% sure Kothagrigus will actually go through Protect here, so I go through a third Dragon Dance as Toxic damage starts to whittle me down. I then go through a KO with a Dragon Claw, but annoyingly Kothagrigus gets off a second Protect. This means I'm really not going to be able to do much with my powered up Dragon before I'm going to be forced to switch. Luckily on the next turn, however, I am able to bring down the annoying Kothagrigus with a single Dragon Claw. Second is Hydreigon, and I'm pretty sure Targaryen will survive another turn of Toxic, so I go through another Dragon Claw that easily one-shots. Fingers crossed Targaryen survives this. Oh thank god. Next is Silasmatode, and I have no choice but to switch out into Aaron here. I get hit with a very weak Drain Punch on the switch, and Poison Point actually poisons. Luckily, I'd actually also equipped Aaron with a Pecha Berry just in case Sleep Powder had missed at the start of the fight, so Poison is immediately cured. A single Mega Drain is then able to get the KO. Next is Electros, so I immediately land another Sleep Powder. Gotta love Aaron's luck here. I then land a Leech Seed, and then get hit with a Flamethrower. I'm not too worried though, no way we'd get taken down by a non-stab Flamethrower here, right, at full HP. I'm actually finally punished for not playing around the crit because Aaron goes down. The amount I've not been playing around the crit this run, I was bound to lose someone eventually because of it, but why did it have to be Aaron? Rest in peace, buddy. I then send in Greyjoy to still with Leftovers and Leech Seed recovery, so I immediately go through a Reflect as Greyjoy takes a weak Acrobatics. I then tank a decently hard Thunderbolt and go through a Charm to lower Electros' attack. I then get hit with a weak Acrobatics. I'm a bit confused at why the AI didn't go for Thunderbolt again, but hey ho. I then land a really hard Psychic that leaves Ghetsis in range to heal on the following turn. This means I'm freely able to get off 2 more Psychics for the KO. 2 more Pokemon to go. Next is Drapion with Night Slash, so I switch into Lannister. After the Intimidate drop, I'm fairly safe to switch into Tully, who tanks an Earthquake. I then hit a Razor Shell that does just below half while being hit with a Slash. I then get hit with another Night Slash, but most of the damage is healed with a Citrus Berry. I'm then able to lock Drapion into Night Slash with Encore, which lets me safely bring Lannister back in to get off another Intimidate drop, and then KO with a single Flamethrower. Last is Toxicroak, so I switch into Baratheon on a Sucker Punch. I then get off the Thunder Wave while being hit decently hard with a Poison Jab. I decide to play it safe here and switch back into Lannister for another Intimidate drop. With Toxicroak's attack dropped, it's safe to bring Baratheon back out and get off 2 discharges for the win. It's Team Plasma taken down, but at what cost? We're then ready for the final stretch, and I decide to evolve Umber into Minion Show, and then it's time to tackle Victory Road and our final rival fight. With a bit of luck, however, we managed to get through Victory Road with no issues, which surprised me to be honest because there's a lot of scary trainers. I'm not going to complain though, as we now have to team build for probably the scariest Elite Four and Champion fight in the series. Let's see who we're bringing. Targaryen, the Haxorus, Tully, the Samurott, Umber, the Minion Show, Lannister, the Arcanine, Greyjoy, the Relicoose, and Dane, the Clink Clang. Our team is pretty stacked, but again this Elite Four is insanely strong on challenge mode, so let's see how this goes. First up is Chantal, who should be one of the easier members of this league. I start with Targaryen, while Chantal starts off with Kothagrigus. I immediately start setting up with Swords Dances as Kothagrigus lands a Will-O-Wisp. I've equipped a Raspberry, however, so the burn is immediately cured. With one Swords Dance, I'm actually 3 to start sweeping, so a single Shadow Claw brings down Kothagrigus. Golok is second and goes down to a single Shadow Claw. Third is Driftblim, who then shockingly goes down to a single Shadow Claw. Fourth is Bayonet, and I don't think I even need to say what happens here. Last is Chandelure, who does have the Choice Scarf. This means I'm going to be outsped here and have to risk a crit, so Targaryen gets hit with a Shadow Ball, and it doesn't crit. That means I'm 3 to wrap this up with the final Shadow Claw. 1 down, 3 to go. It's only uphill from here though. Second is Grimsley, who luckily also isn't too much of a threat. Umber is immediately able to take down Lipard with a single Fake Out and Drain Punch. Second is Absol, who also goes down to a single Drain Punch. First is Bishop, whose Quick Claw activates, meaning I have a slight heart attack as Umber is brought really low with an Aerial Ace. Luckily it doesn't crit however, and Bishop is taken down with a single Drain Punch. Fourth is Crocodile, and after being intimidated I'm not sure if the single Drain Punch is enough for the KO. It isn't, but luckily Crocodile just goes through a single Rock Tomb that doesn't do a lot. I don't want to risk a crit on the next turn however, so I switch into Tully, who takes an Earthquake that does quite a lot. Luckily it doesn't crit however, so a single Aqua Jet is enough to bring down Crocodile. Last is Scrafty, and I don't want to bring Umber back in on the speed lowering Rock Tomb, as I'm 90% sure that's what Scrafty's going to go for here. So I pivot through Dane, who takes a Rock Tomb, I then go into Greyjoy, takes a Brick Break, and then I'm safe to bring in Umber on a Crunch that does nothing and get the win with a single Drain Punch. Easy. Next is Caitlyn, who has a lot of really tanky Pokemon and a Metagross with a Life Orb. Talk about overkill. So this should be interesting. Caitlyn starts with Musharna and I start off with Targaryen. I immediately go through a Sword Stance before being hit with a Hypnosis. I planned for this though, as the Chesto Berry immediately wakes Targaryen back up. Then the sweep begins. A single Shadow Claw is able to take down Musharna. I forgot how fast Sigilyph is, meaning she is able to get off a really scary Ice Beam that luckily doesn't crit off 3s before going down to a single Shadow Claw. Third is Relic Hughes, who goes down to a single Shadow Claw. Next is Metagross, who again I'm very scared of. I decide to switch into Lannister to get the Intimidate drop, completely forgetting about Clear Body. Luckily I'm then able to land a Will-O-Wisp and slightly new to Metagross. It's a good job that landed because even with a burn, Metagross still hits really hard with the Zen Headbutt. I then decide I have to switch again, so I go into Tully, who I'm hoping will be able to take a hit from this thing. On the switch, Tully takes a Hammer Arm that doesn't do too much, and Life Orb plus Burn brings Metagross into the yellow. Tully then goes for a Waterfall that just misses the KO, meaning he takes a very scary Shadow Ball. Luckily Tully survives, and a Burn plus Life Orb chip is able to bring down Caitlyn's scariest Pokemon. Last is Gothitelle, so I switch into Dane, who tanks a Thunderbolt. Dane then hits the weakest Wild Charge I've ever seen. Like really? Scarily, Gothitelle then starts going for Calm Lines, so I Volt Switch into Umber. Luckily on the switch, Gothitelle just goes for a second Calm Line, meaning I'm 3 to get off a Fake Out, and then U-turn to the victory. 3 down, 1 more to go. And the last one is Marshall, who is extremely scary. Marshall starts off with 4, and I start off with Greyjoy. Annoyingly, I can't even set up against Thor because he knows Storm Throw that always crits. I decide to just get rid of this thing and go for 2 Psychics to the KO, or taking a couple weak paybacks. Next is Lucario, who threatens with Shadow Ball. I'm fairly sure that this Lucario won't see the KO and instead go for Calm Mind, so I switch into Tully, hoping to lock it into setup. Luckily, as I go for Encore, Lucario does go for Calm Mind, meaning I'm able to lock him in with Encore, and then it's safe to cleanly KO with 2 Waterfalls. Third is Min and Show, so I switch into Lannister for the Intimidate drop. Even with the drop, Lannister gets hit really hard with a strong high jump kick on the switch. On the following turn, Lannister gets hit with a second high jump kick that very nearly KOs. Thankfully, the risk was worth it however, because a Will-O-Wisp lands, meaning I'm able to get off the burn. I'm then 3 to send out Targaryen, as Min Show has been mostly crippled. On the switch, I get hit with another high jump kick. Does this thing ever miss? Luckily, thanks to the burn, it doesn't do a huge amount, so I'm safe to get off the Dragon Dance. Marshall clearly doesn't want me setting up though, because he U-turns into Conqueror, who immediately gets a Guts boost. That's not scary at all. I then get off the boosted Dragon Claw that just misses the KO, and get hit back with a Hammer Arm that leaves Targaryen on 6 HP. That's mad. Luckily, I know Marshall will now heal, meaning I'm 3 to get off the second Dragon Dance and KO with another Dragon Claw. That was a bit too close to comfort, I'm not gonna lie. Min Show then comes back out and goes down to a single Dragon Claw before Swap comes in and suffers the same fate. That's the Elite Four taken down. An unlucky crit or 2 there and a couple of those fights would have been disastrous, but we made it through, and now we have one final obstacle before we can take the win, the champion, Iris. Now people say Cynthia's team is hard, but Jesus, Iris's team is stacked to hell on challenge mode. Luckily with my full team alive, I should be able to pull off a win here. Iris starts with Hydreigon and I start off with Umber. Luckily Umber is able to get off a Fake Out and a Drain Punch to the KO before Hydreigon can do anything scary. Good start. Second is Dragagon, so I switch into Lannister to hopefully get off a burn. Unfortunately though, even with an Intimidate drop, Outrage does a huge amount, so I really need Will-O-Wisp to land here if I want to keep my doggy alive. Unfortunately though, Lannister misses, meaning Dragagon is able to get off a high roll with an Outrage and KO. Rest in peace you big fluffy puppy. You were in my party pretty much this entire run, and losing you is not a loss I take lightly. With my puppy down, I am at the very least able to bring in Targaryen, who outspeeds and KOs with a single Dragon Claw. Third is Lapras, so I switch into Tully. Tully is able to tank a Blizzard fairly well and then lock Lapras down with an Encore on the next turn. This means I'm safe-ish to bring Dane back in, who is able to get off a single Gear Shift before taking down Lapras with an Electric Gem boosted Wild Charge. I'm expecting recoil damage to take Dane out here, but he actually barely survives on 2 HP. The amount that's happened this run is actually kind of insane. Aggron is 4th, so I decided I might as well Volt Switch as Dane is determined to stay alive. I decide to switch into Greyjoy, who might be able to to weaken Aggron enough for some cheeky setup with Targaryen. I'm able to get up a Reflect and a single Charm before being brought low enough to where I'm going to have to let Greyjoy go down here. So I salute as Greyjoy takes another rock head, and he actually survives. Oops, and I known he would have survived that. I could have actually gotten off a recover and probably kept him alive. I didn't, however, meaning I'm still going to have to let him go down. Rest in peace, you weird psychic Thetis looking thing. You'll be greatly missed. Thanks to Greyjoy's Charms and Reflect, I'm able to get off 2 Sword Stances and a single Dragon Dance with Targaryen in complete safety. This means it only takes 3 Dragon Claws because Iris heals to take down Aggron. Next is Iris's own Haxorus, and unfortunately because of Focus Sash, there's no way to safely take down this monster without letting Targaryen go down. So I go through a strong Dragon Claw that leaves Haxorus with 1 HP before Targaryen is taken down with an Outrage. Rest in peace, Targaryen. I never really felt like I used your setups to my fullest potential, but you were still a vital part of this run. I'm then able to send in Tully, who thanks to priority Aquajet is able to get the revenge KO, bring down Iris's monster in one final hit. 1 Pokemon to go, Archeops. I would be fairly scared of this colourful bird, but due to Defeatist, I feel pretty safe here. So I go through an Aquajet that does above half, essentially guaranteeing me the win. I didn't even need to take that risk here, however, because Archeops just goes through a Stone Edge that misses. This means on the next turn, one last Aquajet is enough for the victory. I'm actually surprised how well that final fight went, considering how stacked Iris's team is. Suppose it helps we got lucky with the Elite Four. That was a really fun run, and I feel like had I got unlucky with the crits in a number of key places in that run, I wouldn't have won, so I'm very happy with the results. I hope you guys enjoyed watching the run as much as I did playing it. Please remember to like if you enjoyed and subscribe for more. Also, I'm always open for run suggestions if there's anything you'd like to see in the future. Thanks again for watching. Bye bye for now.